what developers, city staff, decision makers rely on when they're reviewing development projects in this case. So now we're going to go into the proposed plan. So if you were to describe the Granada Hills Knollwood Community Plan in a nutshell, I would say that the plan is a conservative growth plan. It embraces small town character of the community, its unique natural resources and amenities, and its distinct and unique equestrian culture, and that's addressed in more the northwest portion of the community plan area. So we identified really 5 major themes. Again, the equestrian lots. So what we identified as an issue is that through the subdivision process, a lot of lots were being subdivided, so they no longer could meet the minimum lot size for someone having horses. So that's something that we've addressed to maintain a minimum lot size. So people of course aren't required to have horses, but just to maintain that in the future, that people would be able to have horses, maintain these larger lots. And then the other theme was the small town character and single family homes, environmental and open space. We're minimizing the development potential along the foothills and the open space areas along the northern portion of the community plan area. And mobility. So mobility in Granada Hills, Knollwood doesn't necessarily mean just auto use or bikes or pedestrians, of course, but again, it includes pedestrian uses. So we have additional trail network mapped out to provide the development of future trails throughout the community plan area. And the last one is design in commercial areas. So we have added additional design guidelines, and we also have one of the implementing ordinances, a specific plan that addresses design of new development and making sure that it complements surrounding uses, good architectural style, additional landscaping, things like that. So again, I think I already really touched on this, but this outlines the general idea or general area of the equine keeping district in the northwestern portion of the community plan area. And what the K district does, it applies minimum lots for any future properties that are subdivided to ensure horse keeping is a viable use in the future. And this is another change through the land use designation change. We've actually broken down an existing land use designation into 3 additional. These are all single family residential designations. And what we're doing is we're working towards commercial areas and multifamily areas and preserving the existing single family. So this is another theme that we identified, the environmental and open space. So again, we're preserving the open space areas in the northern portion of the northern portion of the community plan area. And then we are developing an extensive equine trail network that connects along existing right-of-ways and then also throughout the northern portion of the community plan area around the park. So we've really expanded the existing trail system, so as it goes from 12 to 16 miles. And then we've also added design guidelines, so as new trails are developed, we have design guidelines in terms of the type of fencing materials and landscaping along the new equine trails. So overall, the plan encourages a more balanced and multimodal approach to mobility, what we call complete streets. So it's a number of users, not just auto users. And we want them to enable safe and attractive and comfortable access and travel for all users. So what we also identified is certain streets as priority streets. So the map shows Balboa Boulevard. It's a lot of bus activity and vehicular traffic, so it prioritizes both a public transit and motorized vehicle priority street. Cessnon, in the northern portion of the community plan area from Cascade Canyon to the western edge of the community, is identified as a trail priority street, so that future street improvements would include a horse trail. And then one of the other identified themes that we touched on briefly is the design in commercial areas. So in Granada Hills, the total percentage of land uses, commercial makes up approximately 2% of the total number of land uses. And based on community input, it was identified as more of a neighborhood commercial, especially along Chatsworth Street. So what we've also proposed is a number of zone changes. So we've proposed to change the zone for a lot of the properties along Chatsworth Street from C2 to C1. So what that does is keeping more neighborhood scale uses and restricting certain other uses that aren't in keeping with the neighborhood survey. And then we've also provided a zone change of reducing the building height. So we've done a height district change. So that's actually consistent with the specific plan regulations along Chatsworth Street. So all new buildings would be limited to a maximum of 30 feet. And so what the community plan has a number of goals and policies, and as a way of implementing those policies, we have a number of implementation tools. So one of those tools is zone changes, but as part of the community plan, we have 3 specific implementation tools. So one of them is, as I touched on that already, a pay district. And then another one is an amendment to the specific plan. And then the final implementation tool is a residential floor area district. So the specific plan and the RFA, Anna will touch on that and give you a little more information about that. So this is the K district. And again, as I mentioned, it applies to use of subdivisions that would have to maintain a minimum lot size to ensure future equine uses. And there's also distancing requirements between habitable space and horse corral. And then for any future entitlement project, based on the trail map, any future improvements would also have to dedicate and incorporate the equestrian trail.
Because there were 2 issues
terms of the entire community planning process. And it gives you an idea of where we are at the near end. So, as I mentioned, we went to City Planning Commission back in 2013, and the next steps that we anticipate in October is to go before the PLUM Committee, which is the Planning and Land Use and Management Committee of the City Council, and they make a recommendation to City Council for final approval, final adoption. So I know a lot of you have been involved in the process for a number of years, probably from the beginning, and it's been a several-year process. So I know, this is really the end, but we just wanted to notify you in terms of informing you of where we are in the process, and all the information that we've heard, the feedback that we've heard over the several years, and just moving forward from there.
Thank you very much. And you did say you take questions, so I would like to encourage everyone with questions to please keep them focused, to the point. This is not going to be an argumentative event. This is for information. So with that being said, please, feel free to
I'm just curious. You're here tonight, and it's great that you're here making this presentation. The question is, how does the modification that's going on with the BMO, how will that affect changes in this other thing that's part of the BMO and the plan? Because if that changes, then what's in the plan is going to be different. It's kind of like right now we're looking at a cart before the horse. And second question, Kevin Keller promised that all the issues that were raised by the community on the draft environmental impact report would be addressed and answered and complete prior to it going to the PLUM Committee. Now, I'm on the list to receive updates. I didn't receive an update that you were going to be here tonight. That would have been nice for those of us that signed up for updates to know what was happening here. Again, I feel that the city planning, those were my questions. Keep it short. Thank you.
I'll take the second question first. So that is true. We do have, as part of the final EIR, so the final EIR, we respond to every comment letter that we receive during the comment period of the draft EIR. And so we will be responding to that. We will be releasing the final EIR and notifying everyone on the interested party list. And that will be prior to City Council going to club.
Okay. There's one issue that was brought up by the City Planning Commission on that date by Commissioner Perlman. And I don't know if his request from the City Planning Commission has been addressed or not. And it had to do specifically with the RFA district and changing the restriction for the larger properties.
Of reviewing, I think it was directing us to provide an additional analysis if anything was possible.
Yeah, to change it.
So that is something that we will report back on. But everyone in the interested party list will get email blasts notifying when the final EIR is released. And everyone who provided comment letters will get a CD of the final EIR. And then your first question with the BMO, are you...
Yeah, I'm just wondering why we're doing an RFA when the BMO is going to change and be more restrictive. We might not need to modify anything in the BMO because it apparently appears to be working just fine.
Are you speaking about the ICO?
No, I'm talking about the baseline mansionization ordinance. Sorry for the acronym.
Yeah, that is a longer process.
I'm saying that the two are tied together though.
Well,
So I'm just kind of wondering.
The RFA, I think we identified a need for something more than baseline. I know baseline, the BMO ordinance was adopted several years ago, way back in 2008.
It's just an interesting thing going on that changes what's here, and it's okay.
Hi, yeah, as far as the equestrian area and parts of the northern worship acres, talking about the Turbo Oil Company is planning on increasing its pumping capacity, and which, have you taken into consideration the increase in big truck traffic and everything else?
Is that a recent proposal?
Actually, yeah. They're looking at, for 18 more drilling platforms, which might include acidization, and it's said no fracking, but,
Maybe we can talk a little bit
Okay.
about it after.
Thank you.
More specifically, with regards to zoning and the interested party list, does that include the actual people who live in the Norwood community?
I'm getting notified for Plum. So there's not not with how we had a city planning commission, we had a hearing prior to city planning commission. The notification requirements aren't quite the same. But are you on our email, our interested party list? We'll definitely, we have a really exhaustive list of people that have been involved, even towards the end, or I get calls from people who want to know what's going on and haven't been involved in the process. So we'll notify everyone that's expressed interest.
Well, what if people are not on that list? Are the people in the community, that particular community, going to be notified in some way?
For city council meeting, it's just available online in terms of the notice, in terms of the agenda for the Plum committee would be available, I believe, a minimum of 72 hours before the meeting.
And my second question with regards to the signs, is that going to be regarding size? Is that going to cause a lot of businesses to have to downsize their signs on Chatsworth?
I think, and I'll maybe mention that, or have Anna weigh in, but the limitation, we're not further limiting or restricting the size of signs than what the existing specific plan currently regulates, which is, I think it's one.
Two square feet for every 1 foot of open air.
So that's not changing, the specific plan amendment doesn't make it more restrictive in terms of the total sign area. So that's not a change.
Yes, once this plan is adopted, when does it sunset? Because as I remember, the plan we're operating on right now was supposed to sunset at least 7 years ago. And it's taking us all this time to get it, so what's the length of this plan once it's adopted? When does it supposed to be a new plan takes place?
Well, the projection, I mean, it goes up to 2030.
Okay.
We do evaluate just based on building activity going on in community plan updates in terms of not just building activity or building permit data, but also entitlements. So it gives the department an idea of how many developers are coming in and requesting zone changes. So that gives us an idea of the changes happening in a community. So, I mean, I would say the projections or the proposed plan is up to 2030, but that's something that internally we review and see in terms of additional, if it warrants a change in zoning.
Thank you so much, truly appreciate it. Sorry, home committee meeting is the 20th?
The 20th, we're the 20th. Once we get the information, I'll definitely reach out to both neighborhood councils and.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
thank you all very much. All right, we have a second speaker from the city tonight. This is Vivian Swanigan from the city attorney's office.
Hello, everyone, and I have handouts. I don't want everybody to be scared. I'm not gonna actually talk about everything that's in this handout. Anyway, we have a little bit of time. My name is Vivian Swanigan. I'm an assistant city attorney, and I am implementing the labor relations section. Within my section is the workplace violence unit. We address workplace violence, bullying issues throughout the city. I'm gonna move myself out a little here so I can use this hand up there, everybody can see it. And you've already had a code of conduct mentioned to you. What I want to do is talk to you about how the workplace violence policy applies to your board and how that ties in with the code of conduct. In discrimination, protected categories, explain what that means, and the workplace violence policy. And they used that as the basis for deciding that they also needed to put together this code of conduct, which all of you have signed. I don't know, of course, we never know if all of you actually read it before you sign it, but hopefully you did read it. And so I'm sort of here to just emphasize what, in the ways in which you are protected by the city and the ways in which you can be aware, know about reporting, and watch out for inappropriate conduct. One of the first things that I'd like to talk about is just the fact that everybody has preconceived notions about other groups of people, and we tend to, go around, operating under these preconceived notions. And I always use a safe category, and that safe category is teens. So people have preconceived notions about teens. They are loud. They're more likely to do drugs. They drive recklessly. They are lazy. They sleep too much. And anything else I can't think of right now. But the reality is that there's lots of teens out there that are productive members of society, that they work to help their parents. They maybe even do after-school jobs to contribute to the household. They volunteer, whether it's at a hospital or on a political campaign. So there are lots of responsible members of the category, if you will, of teens. And so everybody needs to remember to look at each person as an individual and not categorize them, especially when you're talking about the work environment. There's some places where maybe categorizing does work, when you're driving and you go, oh, those cars are really slow cars, you're gonna get behind that one. So maybe you can do that, but when you're talking about working together, you have to be really careful to use these people as individuals. One of the things that you have to be aware of is that you, in this situation as volunteers, could put yourself in a situation where you are held liable for harassment if you engage in harassing conduct. That's because generally the courts see harassment as being a personal cause of action. That is to say that you can personally be liable to somebody else because of your harassing conduct. But I have to add a caveat that only usually pertains to when the harassment is based on protected categories. And protected categories are things like race, gender, marital status. And I was nice enough to list them for you here on the front page of your handout, so you wouldn't have to try to guess what they all are. But there's things like ancestry, your national origin. National origin is what country you were born. Ancestry is probably what country your parents or maybe their parents were born in. So all of these categories are all protected categories under the law. But the reality is when you start talking about something like harassment, guess what? We all have a protected category, right? Everybody's got a gender, everybody's got a race. So everybody has a protected category. So you really just have to not engage in harassment, period, because the other person may perceive it as being based on a protected category. So you can get yourself in trouble even if you aren't thinking, one of these protected categories. The city has a workplace violence policy. It ties in with the harassment theory in that, to a certain extent, you engage in harassment and it can be seen or perceived by the other person as something that's causing them fear. Okay? Once it's causing them fear, then it kicks into the workplace violence policy, and that's when our section will be available to assist you and to come in to try to help resolve any issues that may come up. The city's workplace violence policy applies to all city employees, all city volunteers. It can apply to contractors under certain circumstances, but you board members as volunteers are protected. How many of you are board members? I think I was going to say like half the people here just about, right? So you're protected by the city's workplace violence policy. And so it behooves you to know what that workplace violence policy involves and know that there is somebody that you can report to when there is inappropriate behavior. So what's workplace violence? Workplace violence is either actual violence or a credible threat of violence or a course of conduct. And course of conduct is a course of conduct over a period of time that would cause a reasonable person to be afraid. And so you can see how that could tie in with harassment. You know, these people will see that course of conduct, that they have, you know, harassing conduct, and it'll make them afraid. So you have to have that, plus you have to have a connection to your work at Granada Hillside. So, for example, if you came into a board meeting and this has happened to the board before, and there's a whole group of people and they're waving signs and they're screaming and shouting about a particular issue, and you know they're saying, "You just watch, you know, we're going to get you guys," and then you go out your car afterwards and your car tires were slashed. Well, that would be pretty easy to make the connection that it was related to your job as a here. On the other hand, if you just happen to park and you go out and your tire's flat, that doesn't necessarily mean it's connected. There has to be some sort of connection, but we're usually pretty lenient with that connection. You know, so sometimes clearly we have issues between board members. That's always going to be connected. But sometimes we have issues with stakeholders, or stakeholders cause problems to board members. And, and then sometimes it's just general members of the public, you know, where, you know, somebody might be leaving here and, you know, you get attacked. So it sort of depends on the facts as to finding that connection, but you should be aware that you are protected by the city's workplace violence policy. And that means that it doesn't matter whether the perpetrator, if you will, is internal or external. That is to say, it doesn't matter if the person who's doing the harassing or causing the fear is another board member or whether it's a member of the public. You're still protected by the city's policy, and if there's anything that we can do to assist you, we will. There are limitations on what we can do. We have to work within the law, we have to work within the legal counsel system, but there are things that can be done. I have a few things I wanted to just mention about the workplace violence policy. On page 2 of your handout, lists the behavior that's covered by the workplace violence policy. It includes, of course, violent physical acts. It also includes direct or implied threats to do harm to person or property. It includes verbally abusive or intimidating language or gestures, okay? In fact, you've seen all kinds of gestures. You know, of course, you know, anybody points their finger and looks like a gun. Okay, that's an intimidating gesture, right? It includes threatening, abusive, or harassing communications of all kinds. That means it doesn't matter if it's emailed to you, text to you, verbally told you, you hear it from another person who heard it or got the email or text. It doesn't matter how it is communicated. It's included. Unauthorized possession of a weapon, of course. Destructive or sabotaging acts against property, as I said, you know, like slicing of your tires. And then this engaging in a pattern of unwanted or intrusive behavior, that's kind of a stalking behavior, or it could be a harassing behavior. And then, of course, violating your system. Some of the warning signs that are listed in the workplace violence policy include unusual changes or deterioration of regular behavior. Somebody's been, you know, a nice, friendly person all the time, and then all of a sudden they become extremely withdrawn and difficult to get along with. Withdrawal from others. Increased irritability or expressed feelings of victimization. Belligerent or defiant behavior. Now, of course, you know, some of us have, you know, many occasions over the years had to deal with somebody who's belligerent or defiant. Okay, so you really want to look for the person who is over the top or is consistently that way. It includes, some of the warning signs includes paranoid language or actions, harassing or abusive language or indirect threats, and then fascination with weapons or acts of violence. So fascination with weapons doesn't mean that you own a gun collection. That's okay. You know, I mean, instead, it's the person who's sitting there and, you know, you hear about an unfortunate, gun shooting, rampage or incident. I believe there was one actually this morning, as a matter of fact. You know, and somebody's sitting there watching on TV and saying, well, you know, they should have used a bigger gun. You know, that's the person you want to worry about, okay? Because those type of comments, you know, really make you wonder, you know, how this person is thinking, especially when you have unfortunate situations like the one I think that was in Washington or Oregon. So, we do have a citywide threat assessment team. It has 5 base members: the city attorney's office, an attorney from our labor relations division, the attorney who we have designated on our citywide team. His name is Hugo Rossinger. He works for me in my unit. There's officers of the LAPD threat management unit, and then we have the personnel department's occupational health services department. They have psychological members that work on the team to help when we start talking about whether somebody has a psychological issue. Personnel department helps out. LAPD behavioral sciences section is also on the team. And then we also have 2 workplace violence contractors, and we have LAPD security services. So sometimes, for example, neighborhood councils, you know, may have a particular issue going on, and LAPD security services can maybe have an officer come and sit through a board meeting. You know, that has happened. They try not to do it that often, but because it is a use of city resources that might be used elsewhere. But we do things like that when the situation calls for it. At the same time, you want to be sure or look to see whether the situation that you have, is it serious or is it seriously annoying? Okay, because a lot of us have had to deal. How many of you have had to deal in your lifetime, whether it's working or volunteering? I'm not going to hold you to just the neighborhood council. Have to deal with some seriously annoying people. Show of hands. Okay, all right. Probably ends up being almost every.
Yeah, that's a Brown Act violation.
There's somebody who's seriously.
Can't take a straw
And so
vote.
you have to, you know, kind of
City
balance
attorney
to
should know
see
better.
whether this person's behavior is serious behavior, somebody you need to be afraid of, or whether it's just seriously annoying. And one of the things in determining whether you're dealing with a person who's difficult or a person who's having a difficult day, I've actually put the difference here on page 2, it's on page 2. Somebody who's having a difficult day is going to eventually come around. You're going to be able to talk to them, and, you know, talk them down, so to speak. You know, even if you're caring and thoughtful with them, then they're going to adjust their behavior accordingly. The person who is a difficult person, however, is just going to doggedly say that they're right, refuse to change their opinion. They're going to maintain their aggressive posture. So there's a difference in those two, and in general, we talk about difficult people coming in 2 categories. One is the aggressive category, the other is passive. Now there's all these subcategories on this that, you know, we have a presentation we do that's called Dealing with Difficult People, and in that one we talk about the different types and how you can, and subtypes as well, and how you can take action to deal with that type of person. I'm not going to go into that kind of detail, but I do want to say that there are the aggressive types are the kinds of people that are intimidating, pushy, controlling, manipulative, you know, that are just generally hostile. The passive types, you know, you would think, well, I'd rather deal with a passive person. Not necessarily. You know, the passive person is going to go, "Hi, you like your girl like that when you love?" It's, you know, I mean, it's a compliment, but it's like a backhanded compliment where the implication is, you know, that maybe it's not a compliment, you know. Oh, you did, you know, a good job with the agenda, you know, that's good. Is that a compliment, you know? Yeah, that's that sort of passive aggressive behavior that people will engage in, where they're really not, they're pretending like they're being friendly and nice to you, but they really have, you know, it's an aggressiveness, but in a passive way, being aggressive. And I put in here some typical tips for of the important things, for the code of conduct that Bob, I think, wanted to put in, and actually when you see the preface to that form, it's clear that what Bonk wanted to do was to also, to make sure that all the board members recognize improper conduct. Because a lot of times we tend to put up with things because we think, oh, it's just the way it is, or, there's nothing can be done. But it's really important that you recognize inappropriate behavior and that you don't simply put up with it thinking that that's something that you have to do. One of the things that Bonk did was, in addition to all the 12 categories that I put on the first page of, marital status, disability, age, all these other things that are on the first page, Bonk added, for purposes of the code of conduct, some additional categories that they said you can't treat people differently because of. And those additional categories are income, homeowner status, rental status, which is kind of sort of the opposite of homeowner, and then political affiliation. So they added those extra things in that they wanted board members in particular to be aware that they shouldn't treat someone differently based on these categories. Now, of course, these categories won't put you in civil liability, okay? The other ones on the first page, the harassment ones, can put you in civil liability. That is to say, if you harass somebody based on one of those categories, or if they say that you harass them based on one of those categories, you could find yourself personally liable with your car, your bank account, your possessions. So you want to make sure that you don't engage in that, in either one. But the first one, you're looking at personal liability. On these, you're not looking at personal liability. The code of conduct itself, for those of you who may not have read it or memorized it because you signed it and you turned it in, or you signed it on, you can sign it online now, can't you? I think you can sign it online.
Yeah.
So, but what it has in there, the type of behavior, it says that you can't engage in threatening, you can't threaten to engage in physical attack on any person. And that is a fellow board member or a stakeholder. You're prohibited from using threatening, obscene, or slanderous language. You can't make insulting or disparaging remarks or gestures toward another board member. Okay? That would be in the meeting or after the meeting or online later, or we have had some input councils where people have actually started websites strictly to attack another member of the board. It's like, no, that would be inappropriate behavior, and that's one of the reasons why Bonk did put into place a code of conduct. Disrupting a board meeting. Okay, if you're engaging in behavior that's disrupting a board meeting, that's a direct violation of the code of conduct. Bullying, and interestingly enough, what they did in the code of conduct is I just put bullying here at the bottom, but the reality is that they actually define harassment and bullying exactly the same in their policy. And basically, bullying is defined as conduct that is 1, dehumanizing, intimidating, hostile, threatening, or invokes fear. And 2, it's directed at one or more board members. 3, it's conveyed through physical, verbal, or technological means. 4, substantially interferes with participation opportunities. 5, it adversely affects that board member's ability to participate. And then, last of all, it's based on actual or perceived protected characteristics or association with somebody else with that characteristic. But what did I say about the characteristics? What's the important thing to remember about the characteristics? Everybody has them. Everybody has one, okay? So, it's kind of like, just don't do this as to anybody, okay? Because everybody's got a protected category, so that pretty much means everybody out there is protected. But when it comes to the bullying and the harassment that's mentioned in the, and I hate to tell you the stakeholders, that's mentioned in our code of conduct, that part is directed to, in regards to board members. Now, there is the part of it that says don't, threaten to, there's a line that says don't, let's see, what is it about, any person, the one that I mentioned about, you can't have threaten to engage in physical attack on any person. that includes stakeholders. These other things here where they start talking about, dehumanizing, intimidating, hostile, those things have to do with protection of board members. So there is a bit of a difference there. And I want to briefly just mention handling the serious threat, because it can happen, never has in the history of our neighborhood council, but it can happen that, you know, you're getting a serious threat. And if there is a serious threat, I want to make sure that you take it seriously, because people tend to kind of brush things off. And I like to talk about this case of actual case on the fire department, where we had a fire recruit who was not doing well in the training. He was getting ready to lose his job in the training academy, and you know, but he was still at work pending, you know, probable dismissal. And he's leaving work one day, and the fellow recruit says to him, "So, you know, Chris, how's it going?" And he says, "Well, looks like I'm going to be terminated. When that happens, come back here and massacre it." Anybody see a problem with that statement? I've got one yes. One yes. Anybody see a problem with that statement?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. I would hope you would all see a problem with it. And so, what do you think that the recruit did that heard that statement? What do you think that person did? Well, he went home really, really fast. Went home quickly. And came back the next day and didn't report it. But what he did do is sat around with the other recruits and said, you know what Suey said to me? You know, he said this. And luckily the person who was designated as kind of the team leader, if you would, for that particular week, thought, this is important, I'm gonna go and report it to the captains. And so they went and reported to the captains, who then in turn contacted the members of the citywide threat assessment team, my office, the LAPD threat management unit. And what ended up happening is, because that was considered a criminal threat, which is Penal Code Section 422, and so we all, you know, went into mode and, you know, interviewed the people. We went and got a restraining order, and the LAPD went out, served the restraining order, and to arrest him, and they executed a search warrant at the same time. What do you think they found? Guns, lots and lots of guns, okay? He had assault weapons, he had automatic rifles, he had camouflage gear, soldier portion magazine, he had a pipe bomb that they had to evacuate his apartment building and detonate. You know, so he was pretty much locked and loaded and could have actually followed through on his threat. And so a lot of times we hear about things like the unfortunate incidents from today up in Oregon. You know, you hear about what happened after the fact, but what you don't hear about is some of the things that we stop before they occur, and there have been others. The lesson from that is that take threats seriously, okay? If you hear a threat, you want to make sure that you're going to call, report it to us, okay? Let us know so that we can take action. But that's not designed to scare you, okay? It's just designed to notify you and to tell you how important it really is. We can get restraining orders. When we get restraining orders, we have to show the connection to the workplace. In your case, it would be a connection to Granada Hills South, or some work that you're doing, because you don't have a single set workplace. You know, a lot of times you're out in the community, you're doing things, maybe even you're working from home, but we have to show the connection to your work as a volunteer for the city. And then we have to show that there's some future conduct. That means it's a threat to do something coming up. Okay. And then the intent that we have to show is not the intent to do the act. We don't have to show that the person who says, you know, I'll kill you if you, whatever. We don't have to show that they intend to do the act. We have to only show that they intended to cause fear. Okay? So that makes it a lot lower level of proof for us in terms of getting a restraining order. I've listed some of the charges that come up when you talk about an actual threat. And then the last thing I want to briefly talk about is there are speech concerns with for public persons, which board members are. things like take out in public, as this gentleman is doing right here, okay? But you can't take them secret. Okay? So it's a public meeting, you can take, but you can't like have your private, tape recorder going while you go up and talk to somebody and try to secretly get them to admit to something. That's not me. And then, of course, the public or the board members may say things that you don't like, and they can push sometimes the limits of tolerance, but it is a free speech agreement. That doesn't mean that we should put up with anything that occurs. So if there's questions, again, contact us, ask us about the behavior and what can be done to change it. In terms of defamation, somebody defames somebody else, it's a private cause of action, we don't get involved in that. And I put in some of the things to consider when you're faced with disruptive behavior, including contact with us. And considering, an official board taking of the board. And of course, once you are officially taken to board, you may then give Public Records Act request, and so that's a separate issue. There are some resources on your last page here. I put both my telephone number, Vivian Swanigan, and Mr. Rossiter's phone number again. That was on the back. And again, he's our lead on our citywide drug assessment team now. And I've also listed some resources just in terms of dealing with difficult people. If you want to read further on the subject, these are a few of the many books out there on the topic. And if you have any questions on this topic, or if at any point in time the board wants to have us come back and do a presentation on dealing with difficult people, we'd be more than happy to do that. So thank you very much.
Given that Ms. Horning is here, I'd like to give her some time to take questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
If there are questions, please keep them focused.
Yes.
If somebody was to file a complaint, how would they go about doing that?
Generally speaking, they can call my office. That's really the first step. They can also contact Dunn, though, because Dunn will also take the complaint. Generally speaking, departments take complaints directly. All departments, whether Dunn, or you're talking about volunteers, or other departments, and you're talking about employees. But at the same time, volunteers, employees can call us and
Can they also go to the Employees Relation Board?
Not really on this topic. They're not really
Okay.
prepared for this topic in
Thank you.
regards to, threatening behavior and harassing behavior. Yes.
Since our bylaws lack any provisions with regards to this, what is our recourse for violations of the code of conduct?
And that actually was one of the things that, one of my suggestions is that you make changes to your bylaws. Because that is one of the shortcomings, if you will, of the neighborhood council system that was put into effect. I mean, years ago, nobody ever thought, well, what if, board members don't get along, or what if you have a board member who's a felon, or, who's, accused of, some heinous crime or something like that? Or what if you have a board member who's, completely paranoid, and is running the board meeting maybe in a fashion that, just, I'm afraid of everybody, I don't want to talk to everybody, So there's a lot of things, and they haven't talked about they didn't think about what happens if somebody is engaging in violent behavior. We've had situations where, we've had at least one board where they said that the president was, like mafia style, gang style, and everybody was afraid. So they really didn't even think about that when they were putting this together. And so it's only becoming, more and more obvious as time goes by, and we do have issues that come up in neighborhood councils, some of them, quite concerning. And so Bonk is trying to work on what can be done to actually put, so there's some consequences for violating this code of conduct. But really, the only real tool we have, if it falls short of workplace violence, and it is to, number one, try to resolve it just by speaking with the parties involved. Occasionally, we'll even have, we have a city attorney's, kind of an internal mediation program that we have. It's sort of the brainchild, if you will, of the new program where they're trying to take some of the lower level crimes and like dog barking and things like that, and keep them out of the criminal arena. But there is a city attorney mediation program that can be brought in. The other thing, if it gets really bad though, it's what happens is then the neighborhood council goes into exhaustive measures, and so you're kind of on hold while, you guys wouldn't know about that, you know, that sort of thing, but exhaustive measures is where Dunn comes in and takes over the neighborhood council. Yes?
Why doesn't Dunn just add language that, because they've done it before, in certain instances, where they just went ahead and if it wasn't there, they added that language, that boilerplate language that would be across the board to all neighborhood councils.
Well, the problem with that is that, Bonk really, has the reins, if you will, on that sort of thing.
City council has done this before too.
But what happens is that everybody takes into consideration what the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners wants. And the issue is, for example, one of the things that I would really love to see happen is that, you know, there be training on this issue, that every neighborhood council has, you know, somebody from our division sort of come out and just talk for, you know, 20 minutes on the topic. But the problem is that the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners is made up of people on different neighborhood councils, and it's hard to get a majority of them to feel that they should have to be subjected to additional training. You know, it takes time to do the ethics training. Who was that? I think is he gone already? He was just saying, you did. How long did it take you to do the ethics training?
2 hours.
Yeah, see, it takes time. You know, so a lot of times our
Yeah, but
volunteers don't want to do more
I'm
time.
just talking about clarification, for in the bylaws for stuff.
I know, and that too. All I can tell you is that reasonable minds will differ on how that should be worded, or what should be the punishment, what should be done. And so it's moving, but it's moving at a bit of a snail's pace. We've done good at getting a code of conduct. It took years to get a code of conduct in place. Now we have to work on what happens if you violate that code of conduct, and what should be the consequences. Yes.
So is it possible for us to just add this as a part of, or add this as addendum to the bylaw?
What you do is you're actually changing your bylaws so that it allows for whatever it is. You could decide you want to do censor. You could say if somebody disrupts the board meeting, then they are prohibited, you know, they're excluded from the next 2 board meetings. Or, you know, whatever you want to decide, you as a board want to decide would be appropriate, you know, within bounds of reason, of course. Because the goal is to have a fully functional board that everybody can work together and get things accomplished for your community.
I mean, this is very helpful, so, I mean, can this be attached to a bylaw?
This wouldn't be attached to the bylaws. You would just have to figure out what kind of language you want to have.